We say things like, maybe later, perhaps another time, or I'll see you tomorrow. But for some of us, there won't be a tomorrow. Listen as your worst nightmares come to life. These nightmares have become someone's reality. My name is Justin Crowley, and this is The Murder Project. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of The Murder Project. This is the debrief episode for the Jasmine Richardson and Jeremy Steinke murders. For those of you who are new to the podcast, the debrief is an episode where I sit down with my good friend and former police officer, Mike Smith. In the debrief, we discuss the case from both sides of the aisle, theories we might have, and anything that we think needs a second look. This is an unscripted and off-the-cuff commentary about the cases we are currently covering. The hope for the debrief is to break the case down further, but in a relaxed environment with the true crime we love and some laughter. Strap in, everybody, because the debrief episode starts right now. All right, let's get the show started. How you doing, Mike?
Man, I'm doing good. It's Father's Day.
It is Father's Day.
2021. A shout out to the Chidlins.
Yeah.
That made this day possible. Because, I mean, there's people out there that might celebrate Father's Day and not be a father, and to me, that's bizarre.
Yeah. And happy Father's Day to everybody out there who...
doing the damn thing.
Doing the thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, in this episode, we are talking about Jasmine Richardson and Jeremy Steinke, which in the original episode, I said I heard that the name was pronounced Stank or Steinke. Mike actually looked that up for us, and it is in fact Steinke.
Yes, Steinke.
Yeah.
German roots.
Yeah. So, my apologies if I messed that up in there, but honestly, I don't think anybody knew anyways, because it's just one of those things where even when I was looking it up, you had people pronouncing it, 3 different ways, however they wanted to,
That's true. And really, I don't care because he's a goofball and a dirtbag. And the only reason we have to say his name is so that we can get these people's story out.
Yeah. And talk about how much of a scumbag he is.
Oh, Lord.
So just to do a small recap, I'm going to try to keep this a little more brief than previously. So we have Jasmine Richardson and her family, Mark, Deborah, and her 8-year-old brother, Jacob. Jasmine and Jeremy start dating. Her parents disagree with this dating situation in a huge way, which we all can probably agree that is not a bad thing. Jeremy and Jasmine, and maybe Jasmine, some people say Jasmine, moreover, wanted her parents dead so that she could live with Jeremy forever, or 48 hours perhaps, before they all get arrested and go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
But you had a situation where Jasmine and Jeremy killed Jasmine's entire family, all for quote-unquote love, and it was a very tragic thing, and it's a very terrible thing. And so we're going to go ahead and dive into that, dive into the story and break it down, because we've got a lot to talk about and got a lot to say. So let's go ahead and get in there. So Mike, where do you want to pick it up at?
What hit me the hardest was the fact that you could even have these two in a relationship. Even when I first started looking into it, I did like a triple take. Like a digital triple take, because I couldn't believe that something like this went on.
Because seeing the ages on paper.
Mm-hmm.
23.
And 12. Yeah. And I could speak for myself, but at 12 years old, I wasn't thinking about anything like that. No, most relationships, negative, not in my life.
No.
I think I was still playing with toys.
Yeah.
Video games.
Yep.
Yeah. So definitely something that struck me as asking a lot of questions, as in like, how did this happen? Why wasn't there anything done to prevent it? It sounds preventable, and we like to think that it is. This is probably a clear case that either it wasn't preventable or not enough was done to prevent it. But I looked into it, and from what I gathered, in Canada, the legal age of consent is 16 years old. So she was 4 years shy of even that.
Mm-hmm.
12 years old, you are not done maturing biologically or psychologically in any capacity. I think that your reasoning, especially when it comes to like the construct of love that we have as a society, is completely obscured. Like, you have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
And he was, so she's young and childish and immature to the nth degree, like we all are at 12 years old. And I'm saying this understanding that females biologically age faster than males.
Yeah. I was going to say that earlier. You know, they typically say that females in that age group are around 2 years more mature than the males of their same age. But still, I mean, we're at a stretch here.
Yeah, a super big stretch. 11 years for senior and an adult, which once you get to know Jeremy Steinke, you know that saying adult is obviously not correct. Basically, mentally, I don't think he was even close. Maturity wise, absolutely not.
And do you think that some of the things that they talk about is that Jeremy might have had fetal alcohol syndrome, and that played into the fact that he may, as far as his mental capacity goes, he may not have been, even though a 23-year-old, he may not have been at that mental capacity?
I would say it could be a definite factor.
But still, what we're looking at is that it doesn't matter what his mental capacity was in the eyes of the law or in the eyes of public opinion, because he was 23. Mm-hmm. Nothing moves you past that. And
no, it didn't.
I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I'm just trying to say that, you know, maybe mentally he was a little bit younger in thought, but that does not remove the fact that he's a 23-year-old man dating a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, and the fact that they even get to say dating,
yes,
just makes me angry. Not disappointed, not sad. No, that makes me angry. It makes me want to smack him in the head with a bat, because that's disgusting.
Yeah.
That I would never accept that, and neither should society. It just ain't right. And so they meet at a rock concert, a punk rock concert.
Punk rock concert's kind of how they.
Yeah.
I wish I knew who it was. It was probably like because Medicine Hat's a pretty small town.
Yeah, great name too.
And yeah, I looked that up, and I wish I had it right on the top of but I was really interested in the name, and I hope I don't mess this up for anybody, because we do have a new listener in Canada.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, really
thanks, Canada.
Excited about that.
Yeah, for real.
So Medicine Hat was an interpretation of a Native American term that described the eagle feather headdress that a medicine man wore, I believe. Wow. If I have that correct.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So really, really cool name. But Medicine Hat, smaller town, so maybe it was like a punk rock band that nobody would have ever heard of anyways, so it doesn't matter. But
and I'm sure to her he seems very interesting. He's older. He's edgy. He's everything that she would be looking for in a dude at that age.
He gets to drive his mom's pickup truck.
Oh my gosh, nailed it. It's got a bench seat. That means she could sit right next to him. She's like, this is it right here. We could even hold hands because it's an automatic. She is interested. He's interested back, because just from what I've read about him, I doubt he was getting a lot of attention from females his own age.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to sound really crass about it, but I just really doubt that there were women looking at him being like, this guy's got it going on.
Yeah.
He's super gothy. He's super punk rockery. And the third bullet on this list is he's a 300-year-old werewolf.
He is. He is very much a 300-year-old werewolf, which I think is very interesting, because
that is a neat. I mean, imagine the things he's seen.
Yeah. A lot.
Creation of the automobile. Flight. Flight. Yeah. Modern medicine.
And I brought this up in the episode, but golly, man, he was just 2 years shy of that Twilight Saga explosion. I mean, can you imagine? I was just thinking, like, he's sitting in prison in 2008, and you know, they have access to the internet and computers and stuff like that. But I wish I could have been there whenever he found out that they started making these Twilight Saga movies, where he would have been like, "Gah,
that's me.
That's me." That I could. Can you imagine what my popularity level would be right now in his set of junior high kids?
Not only
new set of junior high kids, because that's one of the things that if you have been around people in situations like this or whatever, I hate to bring up Matthew McConaughey in this and say as I get older they stay the same age, but really, you know, from Dazed and Confused, but really they change as guys like this, as time goes on, they have to change the group of kids they're hanging out with because those kids are growing up and maturing and realizing that this guy is a total loser. And so he has to recycle, or not recycle, but get new friends.
You're right.
He has to kind of replenish the group as they all start leaving and realizing that he's a complete moron.
I think you're exactly right. So their relationship starts to blossom. And her parents are like, you're not supposed to see that guy. In fact, I think it was said they forbade her to see him.
Acceptable.
Yes. And it's really unfortunate they didn't take more steps to do this, because I would have reacted much more sternly to the degree of trespassing.
Yeah.
I'd file a complaint and have him trespass from my property. A restraining order doesn't seem that far out of reach for this situation, because he's 23 and she is 12.
Again.
But I know that these are just forms of paper and like legality, and really that's no way to stop it. And ultimately that's what happened. It didn't stop it. They continued to see each other. But we also have to keep in mind they think that they are love struck with one another. And
the heart wants what the heart wants. And that's what I was going to say. I think even if you would have had restraining orders and things like that, which would have been good legal avenues if later on you could go back and prove that Jeremy was still being in contact with her over like these websites and stuff like that.
Yeah, vampirefreaks.com, I think it was called.
That was one of them. And there's a few other ones, but I don't even know if any of these websites are operational. So I wasn't even going, I was like, why waste our time there? But you could have had legal avenues to maybe have Jeremy arrested or put in if the contact continued, which it did. They were messaging each other, they were calling each other, they were doing the instant messenger thing, which was a lot bigger than some people know. I mean, when instant messenger first came out, I remember I was like, what? Yeah. Exciting new technology. And it burned pretty quick. It burned out pretty quick because text messaging replaced that. But I remember back, especially like 2000, probably 2002.
Yeah, AIM.
You remember the AOL Instant Messenger and like the Yahoo Messenger and all those things. Like you could.
I'd have both running on my desktop.
Yeah, you could get on there and just create really stupid names about.
Absolutely.
And on the vampirefreaks.com, I think her username was like Runaway Devil or something like that. And then they ended up making a book about that, which I hear is really good. And I'd like to go back and check that out sometime.
Yeah, but, for real. That as a book title, that'll grab your attention.
Yeah.
So I know this is going on a long time because there's only so many ways we can say that this is disgusting and perverted, and the fact that it went on is bonkers. But I'm still going to say it one last time. There were steps that could have been taken. Her parents chose not to take them for whatever reason. They probably just wanted to support their daughter.
Yeah.
In the best way that they could. And you could tell that they did that because they, for all intents and purposes, should be remembered as being good, understanding, loving parents.
Yeah.
And that was very much taken advantage of by somebody who became love struck and then obsessed with this damn goofball named Jeremy Steinke.
They were able to overcome those, inner demons. They had substance abuse problems. They found each other in a substance abuse program and
beat the odds.
Both of them.
Both
that's
together.
The thing, together. That's why I mentioned it, in the original episode that relationships like this are usually discouraged because the counselors in situations like that are like, hey, listen, if one of you guys falls off the rails, you're taking the other one down with you,
right.
And they don't want it, but they beat the odds. They got married. They had a family, and it looked like everything was heading in the right direction. I mean, for the most part, people say the everyday average family, whatever that means to each person, but it's sad that all of this, and then because you have movies like, Natural Born Killers where, younger adults or teens watch these movies and they idolize everybody in it and the character roles and it becomes some sort of reality to them that they want to be a part of. And it's sad that this 12-year-old girl who feels like she is in total persecution, that, because she's not allowed to date this 23-year-old man, starts having these ideas that it would just be better if she killed her parents. And from everything I saw, it's, in the beginning, it only talks about her parents, it's like she wants to burn, like the drawing she had at school and stuff where it might have been her whole family. But, that part where she says, I have this idea, it starts with me killing them and then me living with you and, things like that. And I mean, and all of this, her 8-year-old brother just seems like he's kind of the baggage.
Yeah.
The baggage in her whole plan. She knows she wants to kill her parents.
Yeah. Well, that was the quote, what you had just said. It starts with us killing them and then me being with you. And because at this point, both of them are convinced that their happiness is now only possible if they are together.
Yeah.
And it's gone to such a dark place because what effort her parents did put into trying to keep them apart is world breaking to Jasmine Richardson and probably Jeremy, because I read in multiple places that he was more love struck by her and would obviously go to any length to keep her in his life because he's not smart enough to know anything else.
Yeah.
He's like, this is it for me.
Yeah.
This is probably the first time a girl's ever paid attention to him.
Yeah. The love of his life.
Yeah.
And I actually heard that, too, reading in some of the notes that their relationship as it goes on and that she was the one that was trying to be, I guess, more sexual with him. And I'm like, I kind of feel like there was a narrative spun about in some way because everybody is going to have their defenders. Mm-hmm. Everybody is going to have someone that tries to defend a person. Even, I've never been to a funeral ever in my life where someone says, to be honest with you guys, I hope the best for this guy, but he was a scumbag.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about the goodness of people in some way, shape or form. And so some people were saying that Jeremy was the one that was kind of brought into this whole deal and that Jasmine was the one that really tried to sexualize the relationship and things like that. And for me, I just don't believe that. I mean, I can believe that she was a willing participant.
Of course.
Even though, like you said, she's 12 years old, so she can't legally be a willing participant.
Right, yeah.
And I want to make that clear because she cannot legally consent to sex.
No. Because
she is a child. She is a minor. But I think that she was on board, but I really feel like as the 23-year-old, he's kind of the one that's pushing the narrative of the relationship.
Of course, and then it gets wound into this tornado of fantasy.
Yes.
Where it starts out as liking each other, attracted to each other, and then it just continues spinning and spinning until it becomes this storm of feelings and confusion and just, along with feelings, pure biology, because that's what they think attraction is.
Yeah.
Especially for him, because he's older and he's kind of at that point in his life. So why wouldn't she feel like she was doing her, like being in the relationship? That's what it costs. That's what adult relationships do. I can even remember in my life as a child, that's the difference as dating and like as a child or a minor and then dating as an adult. There's only one barrier there.
Yeah.
And it's intercourse.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And and she, then she figures out that Jeremy's a 300-year-old werewolf and he wears a vial of blood around his neck and all this. And all this stuff to her is new territory. And I feel like it's dangerous.
It's edgy. Oh, yeah.
It's very edgy. It's very dangerous. And she wants to be a part of this. And then he gives her a vial of blood that he says is his own, which I don't believe that at all. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that the vial of blood was his.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know what the process of getting his own blood into the vial is?
Yeah, Etsy wasn't a thing then. Or if it was, I didn't hear about it. But I do know that did exist even when I was a kid.
What's
you could
that?
Purchase vials of blood or mock vials of blood.
Oh, yeah.
Wear.
No, I
like your Spencers and your Hot Topics people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I got those gargoyle necklaces at. Mm-hmm. Man, I used to, maybe get you a pair of Jinkos or something like that. And just, if it rains, you got 8 inches of wet pants for the whole day. But hey, you know what? You look cool.
Turns into ankle weights, man. You're really just doing yourself favor in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leg day.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Keeping that heart rate just a little higher, but not going peak and and just getting that workout in. But it's strange to me that like we've already said, the relationship's allowed to continue, because I know if they're taking away her electronics, her phone, because that's what this escalates to. Her parents realize that she's still in contact with him. Like you previously stated, there should have been some extra steps taken, but there weren't. They have to start removing all of the things that are comfortable to her. Take away her cell phone, take away her access to internet, take away all these things. So they're seeing this go on. And then I think at some point they have a conversation about if this goes any further, we are never going to be allowed to talk to each other again.
End of the world.
Yeah, because
about to happen.
Her parents are still in control in some capacity of what she does. If they come in and say, okay, listen, I'm taking you to school, I'm picking you up from school, and you're staying in this house.
Yeah, no leisure time.
Yeah, no leisure time. You don't have any communications with him, anything like that. And so, yeah, I feel like it kind of gets to the point where they feel like there has to be some sort of action.
And it does. And
we have to do something.
They concoct this plan that he's going to gimp up in a mask and come into their house she lets him in through the basement and then goes back to her room.
So I believe what happened is that she was still in the basement. Because,
that's right.
Yeah. So they were talking about how much Jeremy drank and how much cocaine he did before he showed up.
Yeah, he gets loaded.
Yeah. Loaded to the max.
He gets incredibly intoxicated to the point where when you read it, it's a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
And he wasn't like a big guy.
He's trying to build that liquid courage up.
He
and
did.
Then you put that cocaine on top of it.
And then he gets blitzed on coke.
Yeah.
What is it? 4 to 6 lines of cocaine? A gram, maybe? I think I read. A gram of cocaine? I've never done cocaine, guys. How much is a gram?
That's a lot. I would think. Like I said, I haven't either, so that's not a lifestyle that I was a part of, but I have to assume that he did that because he was trying to amp himself up.
And he does.
Yeah. He goes into the basement, and because he's so drunk and loaded, he does not do it gracefully by any means, makes a lot of noise, and Jasmine's waiting for him in the basement. So immediately her mom comes downstairs, and she's in like the long t-shirt, like nightgown style. Jeremy immediately attacks her, and I think at this point, she is still in the basement.
Wow. And
at some point between the attack of her mother and the attack of her father, that's when she retreats upstairs. And, that knowing that Jasmine was probably present for the murder of her mother, I think that sets us up for what's to happen later upstairs. That she was a willing participant, that she knew everything that was going on. She was not as innocent as she seems, or as that people would try to get you to think, because Jasmine's father, Mark, hears all the commotion. He arms himself with a screwdriver, which is also something that I would like to point out. I don't know, because now we're starting to get several different countries that are kind of tuning into the podcast, but I don't know how everybody feels about firearms in general and things like that. But this is a situation of having a firearm in your home or something like that.
Yeah, having some type of firearm-based home defense. This would have greatly changed the outcome, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, Mark comes downstairs and sees his wife laying on the floor, and she's dead, or she's
dying,
heading that way very quickly. And he attacks Jeremy, stabs him with the screwdriver. But Jeremy, being, drunk and high on cocaine, probably doesn't notice it, doesn't feel it, doesn't have, and I know from a law enforcement background, I have been into altercations with people who are on cocaine and meth.
Oh yeah.
And it is a very different animal. I fought a guy in a Hobby Lobby parking lot one time, and that was shoplifting. This guy in particular was on methamphetamines, and he was probably 5'8". I'm about 5'11", and I outweighed him by about 40 pounds. And when that fight was over, I barely had any of my clothes together because it was just so crazy. The strength that this guy had was way past what his normal abilities should have been. And when Mark comes downstairs and confronts Jeremy and they get into the fight, Jeremy has the upper hand because of the substances that he was on.
He's not reacting to any type of pain threshold, fatigue. He has none of that preventing him from trying to complete his task, which is killing Jasmine Richardson's remaining family. And Mark, who was bigger than Jeremy, who went down there, walked into the worst and final moments of his life, tragically, he's going to do what he thinks is best, and he's going to try to fight this person. He doesn't know it's Jeremy yet at this point.
No, because he's wearing a ski mask.
Still wearing a mask. I believe it comes off later.
Yeah. I think so.
And we'll talk about that in just 1 second, because to me, I think that quote is chilling. And so they fight. Mark stabs him with a screwdriver, and he ends up losing control and dropping the screwdriver. And he makes a very common fighting error, in my opinion, and he tries to grab Jeremy by the throat with both hands. So like your classic like throat clutch with your hands. And it's not, especially in a what I'd call a brawl or like a street fight style confrontation, it's not very effective.
No.
And
also we're not talking about, like, if you're talking about a sleeper hold, like a rear naked choke. Yeah, that's more effective. You've got the back. If you're standing in front of someone trying to choke them, it's not effective because, one, you can't get the leverage you need to make this person go unconscious quickly, and you're still facing each other face to face.
And so he grabs Jeremy around his neck and tries to choke him in a fit of rage, I can only assume. And of course, the entire rest of his body is open for attack, which
Jeremy lays down 22. He stabs him 22 times.
And they're wound up together at this point, like in close proximity. Multiple stab wounds were in his back. I believe it was 9.
Yeah.
9 stab wounds are in Mark's back. And they fight until Mark has lost so much blood he can no longer continue. Because the basement was covered in blood and signs of combat.
Yeah.
And he eventually surrenders to the blood loss and expires. At one point, as I brought up before, the neoprene, like ski mask type hat that Jeremy's wearing. Was it neoprene? Am I saying that right?
I'm not sure what the...
I do know it's ski mask, but I thought I read somewhere neoprene. So if I mixed that up, I apologize.
No worries.
But that mask comes off in the scuffle.
Yeah.
And Mark now sees that it's his daughter's would-be boyfriend, and he asks him what's going on.
Yeah,
or
why?
That's paraphrased. He
why,
says like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And Jeremy says,
your daughter, because, and to paraphrase, because your daughter wants you dead. And so, I mean, how as
bone chilling.
Yeah. As a father, just know, because I don't know at which point Jasmine left the basement, but when Mark is fighting for his family, he's fighting for his life, but he's fighting for his family's life. He wants to do everything he can to protect his family, and that is very noble. And I think the same can be true about, Deborah. I think when she came downstairs, she probably thought that Jasmine was sneaking out of the house.
Yeah.
She didn't know she was going to encounter a man with a knife and a ski mask on. And, I don't know what the exact situation was with her, but I'm sure that she did her best. She tried, but she was very much outpowered, and the situation was what it was. And Mark he did everything he could. They made a reference about when they found his body, he was still kind of in I guess maybe laying on his back in a fighter's type stance. Like, he had his arms up.
The boxer's pose is commonly called. And
I don't know if that's because maybe he was holding on to Jeremy's clothes, or he was, grabbing, or he was still trying, I know you guys can't see me, but I have my arms up in that fighter's pose trying to figure out, like, was he still, even in his last moments, trying to somehow defend himself? And
I'd like to think he absolutely was.
Yeah. And then the last thing he hears as his life expires on earth is that his daughter wanted his family dead. I can't believe, I don't know what that, I think almost to me, if you were going to get me in a situation where that you broke me, you might have broke me right there.
Yeah. That totally crushed my heart. So he kills.
But it's not over.
No.
We still, and this is the part that stinks really bad. And that because there's still a remaining family member in the house that something has to be done with.
So while Jeremy and Mark are still fighting and the fight is coming to an end in the basement, Jasmine has gone upstairs to her little brother's room where she attempts to suffocate him.
Yeah. Or comfort him.
Yeah.
Depends on how you're looking at it, you know?
So I did read, she did try to suffocate him with like a pillow, but was too squirmed out of that.
Yeah.
But I also read while she was trying to comfort him, she tried to choke him.
Yeah. And that's a level of comfort that I personally, I don't ever want to be in.
No.
If I'm sick in bed and my wife's like, hey, let me get you some soup and let me comfort you. And then she just puts a pillow over my face. I'm going to be a little worried. And I would not like to be comforted in that way.
No, I'm going to say anytime someone's trying to put a pillow over my face and saying it's comfort, they're definitely trying to kill me.
Yeah, they're going to try to kill you.
I have to breathe.
Yeah.
And biologically, it's actually pretty amazing. The day you're born, you start breathing air and you don't stop till you die.
Yeah.
Whether you're asleep or not, to me, you don't think about it, of course. Just a side tangent here, that's part of your life. That's a requirement for you to continue living, but you never stop for 1 minute unless you do it on purpose, of course. Yeah. And that's bizarre.
Unless you got that sleep apnea.
That's true. And then you're going to get some fluctuations there.
Yeah.
Use your CPAPs, people. They do help.
Yeah. And so if anybody ever tries to comfort you by shoving a pillow over your face, I'm going to go ahead and say, remove yourself from that situation. But then she tries to choke him, and that's where you were talking about.
And then I read that at this point, Jasmine and her brother, they can hear Jeremy coming up the stairs.
Yeah.
Because he's probably breathing like a walrus.
Yes.
And bleeding. And the dudes just went through. By all means, he should not be on his feet.
No.
Fights like that are exhausting.
Yeah.
The fight with Mark lasted minutes, which for anybody who's ever trained in grappling, jiu-jitsu,
martial
MMA,
arts or boxing of any kind.
Minutes of fighting is just so exhausting.
It is very exhausting.
So they hear him. And not only is he probably clomping up the stairs and probably some knockoff combat boots of some kind, he's also incredibly exhausted and doped up. So he's probably breathing just so loud. Well, then from what I could gather from the evidence that was recorded, they go to the door of her brother's bedroom. And this is where things get a little foggy when you're talking about accounts of what had happened. This is where things get a little foggy when you're talking about the accounts, because Jacob ends up stabbed multiple times and eventually his throat is slit. Because in the room, there was a lot of blood all over his stuff.
Yeah,
it was everywhere. Like he was running around bleeding to death, which this absolutely crushed me. Yeah. I don't often get welled up in the eyes listening to podcasts of any kind, but hearing about what happened to this boy, it was just unbelievable to me, just gut-wrenching. But the greatest amount of blood loss was in the door of his room.
Okay.
And eventually he expires.
Yeah.
Jeremy had completed killing all her family, but it is really important to note that Jacob, as a young boy, loved Star Wars. And this is pointed out in several sources, and it definitely should be, because he's just a small boy.
Yeah, he's 8 years old. I mean,
he's a Jedi in Star Wars is the coolest dang thing on the planet right now.
Yeah.
He's out there fighting the good fight, and
I guarantee you I can take 20 steps from where we're sitting at, and I can get you a lightsaber.
That's right. Probably multiple.
Yeah, probably 12.
And blood was found on the lightsaber that he had in his room, as if the little boy grabbed the lightsaber to try to defend himself. And that is just gut-wrenching.
Yeah, it's
8
years old. He picks up the only thing that he has, and at 8 years old, he feels like, from what he's seen on television and the way that he pretends with this weapon, that he's going to be able to save himself. And maybe in the beginning, he thought he might be able to save himself and his sister, before he realized that his sister was there to murder him.
And so the conflicting accounts later is that Jasmine says that Jeremy did it, and Jeremy says that Jasmine did it.
Yeah, and we're talking about Jasmine stabbed her little brother in the chest. She took a knife, she plunged it down into his chest to the point where she says, I heard him gurgle.
Mm-hmm.
And in a situation where someone starts gurgling, these wounds are going to be fatal.
Yeah, unless
more than likely, without medical attention, immediate medical attention. And so, like you said, with the blood in the room and all the things that are going on, apparently it was decided that this was not happening fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
So now, what's the next step? Let's just go ahead and cut his throat.
Yep.
They cut his throat, and with that amount of blood loss, especially from the jugular vein, perhaps that did take place by the door, because of the amount of blood loss and everything. And then he dies, and later on, whether you believe Jasmine or Jeremy's story, Jasmine says that she did this because out of sympathy for her brother, that she did not want him to have to grow up without parents. It just how thoughtful and sweet is that?
Yeah.
I
really looking out for him.
Me and my boyfriend, my boyfriend just executed our parents down in the basement. And
just brutally.
Brutally. And I feel bad for you, little brother. So we're just going to stab you and then cut your throat in your bedroom.
Yeah.
Because I care for you so much.
Yeah. Because I care for you, I don't want to have to.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and end it right now.
And this, I think this speaks to Jasmine's grip on reality.
Oh,
and how actually it wasn't that at all. That she was very confused about everything that was going on, and that she had this idea because they had a plan to kill the family, but they did not plan anything past that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
They thought they were going to kill Jasmine's family, and then it was going to be white picket fence and,
I have no idea.
The Canadian dream.
Yeah, I have no idea because it doesn't make any sense that you didn't plan past the murder. That was all. You planned up until the point, and then there was some talk about, after the murders, however it happens, either Jasmine had a bag ready to go and her and Jeremy left, or Jeremy leaves and then she packs her bag, takes a taxi, and goes over, gets a taxi to a convenience store and then walks over to his trailer. But that's where it ends. When the murders are done, all the forethought was over. And if you're going to commit a crime like this, which I hope nobody does, you got to go way past that point.
Yeah.
Not to mention they left all the or most of the murder weapons, because from what I understand, there's multiple knives. Jeremy left a bent knife in the basement, which means that he made contact with Mark's bone. Something strong enough that it bent the knife, and he just threw it on the floor. There's evidence, there's biological evidence everywhere. There's no way, unless they didn't have a grasp of what was going on forensically later on down the road, what was about to happen.
No, I'd say they have zero grasp. They just think they're doing, this is what it's going to take to be happy.
Yeah. They end up getting arrested, and Jeremy tells his side of the story, and Jasmine tells her side of the story. Everything is pretty much the same except for the fact of her brother Jacob being killed. She says that Jeremy was the one who kind of made the final blow and cut his throat and did all that. And each person is trying to pin it to the other person.
Naturally, this happens almost every time in this situation.
Except for the parents. It was like, Jeremy admitted full guilt to killing the parents, but he doesn't for the kids. And I mention this because when he gets into the van with the undercover officer, so Jeremy's being transported from probably one facility or another, or he's going, like, say, from the jail to the courthouse, arraignments, court, something like that. And they put an undercover officer in there as dressed up as a inmate. Jeremy tells him the whole story. And even then he says that Jasmine is the one that killed her little brother. And I think that if you look at all of the times that Jeremy told people proudly that he had killed these people, if he really killed Jacob, he would have taken credit for it.
I do believe that's true. 100%. I believe that Jasmine did do it because she's trying to blame Jeremy, but Jeremy never strays from the fact that he says she did it.
Yeah.
She even talks about, I mean, she already stabbed him.
Yeah.
Why is it so hard to believe that part?
Yeah, and I think before the show started, you said in her mind she was trying to convince herself that what her role was in all of this after it happened wasn't exactly her role. Like, she's trying to convince herself that this was probably not her fault.
No, of course, because when you're young, you don't want to ever think that something like that is your fault. Something this traumatic, now you're talking about like psychological, like trauma responses.
Yeah. People
that go through things like this, often details are locked away, for lack of a better term. And, your brain basically takes those memories and just puts a sheet over them, and you can't see them anymore.
I'm going to keep you safe. Mm-hmm. Locks the door, throws the key away. Putting it in the boxes, they say, like, there's a lot of times, like, things bad will happen in law enforcement, and they'll say, put that away in your box.
That's right.
And that's locking up something terrible that you saw or that you were a part of that happened that was very traumatic. And I guarantee you, every officer that walked into that house,
oh Lord,
they had to get counseling, or they had to lock that away in their box. And that's either going to turn into probably a huge issue with alcohol later on, or they're going to have to get some help. You have to talk through these things.
Oh yeah. This would have been definitely something you wanted to spend some time getting a little bit of support over, because like you often hear from people that spend time in law enforcement or the military, seeing dead people, you get numb to it eventually.
You do.
But you never, and I especially never, get numb to seeing a child dead for whatever the reason.
No.
Accidental or otherwise, you just
child
don't.
Abuse.
And I think it's hardwired instinctually, because as human adults, you're programmed to want that thing to be taken care of, even if it's not yours.
To keep them safe.
It's purely instinct. You're like, this person is supposed to be safe and make it to adulthood. And then after that, good luck. But like I said, I think it's instinct. So you don't ever forget that.
No. And that's some of the worst things that I can remember. Being in law enforcement, people often ask you, what's the worst thing you've ever seen?
It's surprising how comfortable people are just asking people that.
Yeah.
That's happened to me a lot of times in my life.
And I usually give them something from a car accident or something like that, because some of the worst things you've ever seen probably involve children. If you're in law enforcement or you're a first responder, fire department, EMS, it involves children. And that mine was heightened whenever my wife and I had our first child.
Absolutely.
And going into houses that were absolutely disgusting and filled with animal feces and trash and all this
bugs.
Stuff. And bugs. And then you see these small children playing in it, playing on the floor, like
gross. Something
that minor, not minor, but in the realm of from that to a murder or that to a sexual assault. Something like that broke my heart. Like, seeing stuff like that broke my heart. And if you start getting to crimes against children, it amplifies it by 100, and it's terrible. And so a lot of times when people say, like, hey, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? You don't want to know. You don't. I mean, I kind of feel like you don't want to know these things.
Yeah.
Some of the things that first responders have locked inside in their brain don't need to come back out.
Even if they did want to know, you don't want to have to talk about it to tell them.
No, definitely not.
So I definitely feel for anybody involved in this case. And I have 1,000% zero sympathy for the people that made it happen.
Yes.
Because they end up getting caught sometime later. They're seen
the next day or
they're seen several times by witnesses that saw Jeremy and Jasmine being very affectionate, lots of kissing and making out in public, laughing together.
Yeah.
Post murder, post family annihilation.
Yeah.
And I believe they even go where they're staying for the night, and they have sex.
Yep.
Just another felony.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know how many times they had intercourse, but every time it's a felony.
Yeah.
I do know that.
Yeah. If you've ever seen a charge that says count 1, count 2, count 3, count 4, or like in the state of Texas, we have a charge called continuous sexual assault.
Yep.
to where you can cover a certain time span.
Right.
But this would probably be a situation of continuous sexual assault of a child.
Mm-hmm. And they get caught. They kind of turn on each other with the Jacob murder.
Yeah.
And he gets in trouble for he gets sentenced to 3 life sentences.
Yeah.
For murder. And
yeah,
he gets to serve those concurrent. Thank you. I was about to stumble on that for a second. And we wanted to talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so that's in the episode, that's kind of one of the things I brought up, that if I truly believe that Jeremy should have got consecutive life sentences, because
Agreed.
Concurrent means that, just like I said, he is eligible for parole on all 3 murders after 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he has the opportunity to get out of prison. Jasmine, obviously, everybody knows, is already out. But if they would have run those sentences consecutively, he would have been probably 98 years old before he was eligible for parole.
Mm-hmm.
And that should have happened, regardless of his past, regardless of the fetal alcohol syndrome, if that is actually a case, because I haven't found anything that says one way or another that if that is actually true. He should be in prison for the rest of his life. And Jasmine, I think she got off very lightly.
Oh, yeah.
Because of her age.
Because she was a minor.
And this is something that I wanted to talk about in the debrief, because if there's 2 different avenues you can go on this. You can say that Jasmine knew exactly what was going on, and for that, she should have also got life in prison, even though she was 12 years old. Or you can say, well, she's just a child. She didn't know what she was doing, and she received the sentence that she should have. Now, if you agree that Jasmine was a child and that she did not know what she was doing, and she was, in love with this older man, and she needed to be shown a little bit of grace because of her age, then you also have to point out, or then you also have to agree with the fact that children should not be able to date adults. If she doesn't have the mental capacity to realize what's going on while her whole family's being murdered, she should not be able to then decide that she wants to date a 23-year-old man.
Absolutely.
You can't have those 2 situations separated. Either she's old enough to know what she's doing while she's dating an older man, which means she has to accept the consequences that go on with that, which means she goes to prison for 25. Or if she is a child and she does not know what's going on, and she's not able to make wise decisions about anything that happened in the murder scenario, then she does not get to date a 23-year-old man.
Exactly. And I know I wanted to cover this real quick because a lot of people like to jump on the angle of a pre-existing relationship.
Yeah.
You can't have one.
No.
Because he was already in his 20s.
Yes.
You can't be friends first and then be like, well, they were friends first and it developed naturally. And
some people call that grooming.
Yeah, that it is called grooming. That's exactly what I was about to say. You're all up in my headspace. That's all that is. And so I know there's people out there that want to say things like that. And if that's something that you wanted to talk about passionately, then I say go ahead and come at me, because you'll never convince me that.
Yeah.
It's a child. He's an adult. If it was the reverse, I'd say the same exact thing. A predator is a predator.
Yep.
Whether that predator has the actual mental intent or he's just happy to be getting any female attention like this doofus. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. You're still a predator. Go find somebody else. Go find your 300-year-old female werewolf / vampire, goblin, whatever it is that you're looking for, you doofus, and leave the child alone.
Yes.
Because that's disgusting and an unfortunate unfortunate trigger that ended up causing all of this. And I just wish that they had done more. And that's all I can do all day is wish that her parents had taken another step, put it on paper, filed a restraining order. I'm not exactly sure how it works in Canada. I'm just wagering that there's a thing for that.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I did look up the age of consent, which is 16. It's 17 in Texas.
Yes.
And you can also be considered an adult for certain crimes at 17 in Texas, which is great.
Yeah. So, for the most part in Texas, so legal age of consent is 17. And then responsibility for legal crimes and things of that nature is also 17.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the weird part is that I found whenever I was going through the academy and stuff like that is that in family code, we're talking about Code of Criminal Procedure and Penal Code. You're an adult at 17. In family code, you're an adult at 18.
That's right.
And so when you have instances of runaways and things like that, your parents are personally responsible for you in the state of Texas until you're 18.
Oh, yeah. And the way they break it down for you.
But you can go to big boy jail at 17.
That's right. And the look on their face when they learn that, priceless.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to juvie. I'm like, no,
you have to write me a citation. You're like, nah, you're 17. You're going to jail.
Jail. Don't drop the soap.
No, don't. And so
I'm just kidding, by the way. That's not.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was an obvious joke to go for. This entire thing started with being love stricken. Love is only a construct. There's nothing biological about what love is. And so that's why we as a society are so open to it being interpreted differently. And as society has progressed, we've gotten more open to the way it works. But the one thing that's remained constant in the modern interpretation of love is that it can't be a kid. I almost cussed. It can't be a kid. Everywhere, all around the world.
Whatever your beliefs are as far as love goes, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Not children.
No, absolutely not. And
never children.
Yeah, absolutely not. And that's pretty much the thing I want to harp on, and I'll keep harping. And if anybody wants to have a conversation about it, I'll be just as passionate then.
Yeah.
It's weird and gross.
Yep.
And a felony.
And I know several people said, well, did he get any charges related to the sexual assault of Jasmine? And the answer to that is no. And one of the things that I think the reason for that is because in criminal cases and things that when you're building a prosecution and you're building your case and the charges, the warrants, all that stuff, normally you go for what the highest charge is, and then you kind of work your way down, and you can use those lesser included charges later on down the road if you need them. Because Jeremy was found guilty of the 3 counts of murder, he would not have received a sentence that would have been longer. Probably under their law.
Right, exactly.
I know in the state of Texas, we talk about this a lot because we know this. In the state of Texas, if you have like an aggravated sexual assault of a child, you can receive 5 to 99 years in jail.
Yeah,
and
anytime.
for a murder, not a capital murder, but just murder, you can receive 5 to 99 years in jail. For capital murder, you're gonna get life.
You're gonna get life
without parole, or you're gonna get the death penalty. Those are the only 2 situations. So. Realistically, in Texas, they probably would have charged him for the aggravated sexual assault of a child because he could have gotten, the same 5 to 99, unless they're just going to combine it all together like they did in a situation like this. So Jeremy was not charged with the sexual assault of a child because I believe that they already had the murder cases and they weren't going to move forward with that.
I don't like that detail. It's baffling to me, but the time I've spent in close proximity to how the court system works, I do understand why they chose to do that, because they knew they had him solid on the murders. And so if you're wondering, that's not good enough, they should have done it. I totally agree.
Yeah. Don't think we're not on that bus with you, because we are. Yeah.
I'd have hit him with it, because now anywhere he goes forever, they have to know that.
Yeah. And that's such a great point, because if Jeremy is let out of jail, he does not have to register as a sex offender because he was never convicted of a sex crime.
Right. Yeah.
And even,
now again, before you continue, we don't know that it's the same in Canada. We're just implying that it is.
Yeah.
It might be different.
That's true. And the same thing goes true with Jasmine because of her age. None of this information in a discovery situation, you cannot find this about her.
That's right.
She was a juvenile. So when she completed her sentence, it was wiped away.
That's right.
And I will say that she apparently moved on with her life. She went to college. She's probably 27, 28 years old now.
She changed her name. Huge thing that I wish now I'd have brought up sooner when we were talking about the finishing her sentence, Yeah, she changed her name. So she gets to continue her life and quite literally go on as if this never happened.
Yes, you cannot find, if you run a criminal history on her, it's not going to be there because her juvenile files are sealed, or even in Canada, they might expunge the whole thing.
Yeah.
And which means that all the documentation is destroyed. And even if you run a criminal history, it's not even going to show the arrest, because in the United States and Texas, if you get, say, like a deferred adjudicated probation, it does not show up as a conviction on your record. But if you run a criminal history on a person, it will still at least show the arrest. In this case, there would be zero.
That's right.
There would be nothing there. So she gets to move on and continue her life uninhibited.
Right. So she gets out. She starts her life over as, whatever her name is, Susan Q. Public. And nobody ever has to know that she was part of this god-awful event.
This terrible crime.
Yeah. That it was her idea for him to do this. And the intent, she got what she wanted out of it. She might not have done the stabbing or the absolute tussle brawl in the basement that ended her father's life and eventually her little brother's when they went upstairs. But it was her idea. Yeah. And ultimately, I don't think, looking back on what there is available about Jeremy's life, that he'd even be capable. He'd probably thought about it a lot because it's cool to think and say. But the execution, no, he needed some initiative, and that's where she comes in. So she is 100% as guilty of the crime as he was. And had she been an adult, but remember the key point of this entire case is that she's not a dang adult.
Yeah.
And so she gets to just move on with her life and be like, oh, because she was a child. But I mean, you worded it perfectly. You don't get to have it both ways. She's a child, and it's not her fault, or she was an adult, and it sure the heck is her fault.
Yeah, and she should still be in jail right now.
I totally agree with that.
Junior high's rough. We talked about that.
Oh,
There's
Lord.
a lot there.
And that's what helped mold Jeremy into the person that he was.
Yeah.
And school is awful for anyone. Everything gets so clicky.
Yeah.
It's click a clock every day, even for somebody who kind of just meshed in everywhere. Because in my limited experience, seeing as how I only went to school once, I could fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
I was kind of the kid that could be caught anywhere, but I also got picked on.
Yeah.
Who doesn't? Kids are brutal.
Very brutal.
And so as a society, again, we filter ourselves into these cliques. And if someone doesn't fit into what your clique views as acceptable, then you're mocked.
Yeah.
For whatever it is. And they'll grasp onto anything. It could be the way you do your hair, the clothes you're wearing, the way your breath smells, the way you just look, your body type, whether you're fat or skinny. Don't worry, we'll target both. And even as far as to what brand backpack you wear, because I had like a little cheapy backpack and it wasn't a JanSport. And so I was even mocked for that in school. So that just goes to show you. Yeah. And so
what sports teams you follow.
Exactly.
I mean, literally could be anything.
Anything to make you feel below me.
Yeah.
I'll target that with laser precision. Kids can be awful. And so that knocks people into further reaches of these cliques until you get into a group of, quote, weirdos, end quote, and they sit around and they want to make themselves feel better. And so that's how you end up.
And they do everything they can to separate from them. That's right. Because they were put out by these people.
Pushed away.
They were pushed away. They want to be everything that they are not. They don't want, and that's, I think you get the distinction with the clothes and things like that. And I mean, I don't even care about the clothes. I mean, I still have friends to this day that are into the heavy metal scene that still wear all black.
Absolute way of life.
Yeah. And you know what? Some of the nicest dudes I've ever met in my life.
And that's a really good point, and something that the last thing I want to drive home, I got the piston arm going, is it doesn't matter what your interests are. It doesn't matter. As long as they're not illegal.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what you think is cool, what kind of music you like, how you dress, how you do your hair, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation. None of that should matter. At the end of the day, the only thing that should matter is that you're a good person.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a lifelong Christian. You don't have to, study Buddhism. You don't have to give away all of your wealth to charity. Just be a good person, because innately we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You be nice to people.
Yes.
You don't have to compliment them, but you also don't have to insult them.
Yeah.
Give people their space. Help people if they need it. Just be a good person. And if you could get that message across to the American education system, I think future generations would sure appreciate that, because I have kids, and they're in school, and I often hear just in passing how terrible their classmates are. And you're just like, why doesn't that kid know better?
Yeah. Or like one of my kids will say something that I know they never heard here, or an insult or something like that. And I'm like, hold up.
Where'd you learn that?
Stop right there. Who said that?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you learn that? Is it the YouTubes? Is it the kids?
Yeah.
Is it the, whatever?
Is it the social medias, boy?
Yeah, is it the social media? I'm taking all your social media stuff.
Yeah.
I'm turning into one of those guys.
Mhm.
And to your point about the, treating people well, one of the things I learned whenever I got into a professional setting when I got older is someone told me a quote one time that, surround yourself with good people, and then you can imitate that. If you surround yourself with successful people, nice people, good people, it doesn't matter, like you went back to, it doesn't matter about anything but how you treat people and how your friends treat you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the quotes I heard was, no one's ever jealous of the success you have as long as it does not exceed theirs.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And when I started to get in professional situations where I was kind of starting to climb the ladder, that's when the knives start coming back out.
Oh, yeah.
And that to me goes back to reverting to those junior high days where I don't like the success you're having. So now I'm going to try to intervene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you have people in your life that are like that, it doesn't matter if they're lifelong friends. Remove all that.
Mm-hmm.
Remove the negative out of your life.
Oh,
Be happy.
it's like
Love your friends. Love your neighbors.
it's the Band-Aid approach.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt.
Yeah.
Just rip it off.
Just
and
rip
you know
it off.
what? Luckily, this is something that Justin and I have also both have done at some point in our adulthood. And we're actually pretty close in proximity in years, like just a couple years apart. Like it happened to me and then it happened to you. And it's a hard lesson to learn. But what we're getting at is you don't push people away to these fringes of society.
Yes,
And that's how you don't end up being a 300-year-old werewolf.
exactly.
Because I believe that silly feller needed that to
He was
feel
looking for acceptance.
powerful. He needed to feel strong.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't have anything to really grasp onto and say, this makes me strong. I have these skills. I have these hobbies that make me strong. So he made them up. That's my guess. Do I know that for a fact? No. I'm just saying I have met people in my life that have similar claims to fame, for lack of a better term, because I'm a lifelong gamer. And so you meet weird people in the gaming world. And this is where I was like, I know why this person acts this way, or I can at least assume. And that's why I think it. He needed to feel powerful, because in your imagination, nobody can take that from you.
Yep.
You convinced yourself of your superiority, and nobody can take that away. Like they can take away the fact that you don't have a college education, you don't own a car, you don't own decent clothes. Those are tangible things that someone can reduce your value with. But if your imagination, you're a 300-year-old werewolf, nobody can take that from you. And he probably needed that.
Yeah. And in saying that, I would also say, no matter who you are or what you think you are, you're always welcome here.
Absolutely. We like weirdos. I'm a weirdo. Anybody that knows me well will tell you that. I'm like this big mishmash. Did I say that right?
Sounds good.
Weirdness. And that's what makes me me. And I'll support that all day, provided that you are also a good person.
Yeah. Because Mike and I get along very well. We bounce off each other very well. Do we have the same exact interests? No. But one of the things that kind of drew us together as friends is that we are different in some aspects of our life. We shared a commonality of law enforcement. And in the beginning, that was probably about it.
That was it.
Yeah.
And then, you start talking, and then you like what the other person's saying. You're laughing, you're joking. Next thing you're doing what develops naturally as friends. You're telling life stories. You're finding parallels. You're making connections, and that's how it happens. Yeah. And now look, we're making a podcast because we just get along well.
Yeah, give everybody a chance.
That's right.
Give them a chance. And so I think for this episode, we're going to go ahead and leave it there. We're a little bit over an hour, so I definitely don't want to get into approach the hour and a half and 2 hour section like we could do.
Definitely not. No.
Maybe later on down the road, if everything is going well and people want more of a long form podcast, hey, we can always do that. And speaking to listeners, I just want to go ahead and take the time to apologize for the delay that we've had. We'd like to put 2 podcasts out a week. That's the plan. That's the goal. But sometimes life gets in the way. I was extremely busy last week, and Mike was too. I mean, Mike, just speaking for him in this section, Mike works very long hours and he works very odd hours. And I have 2 jobs where I work long hours. And then last week, my wife was out of town. And then, so when you just combine all those things together, boy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we are sorry. And, let us know what you think. If there's a way that we can make that up to you with maybe additional content in the next few weeks, you know what? I would love to do that. If that's what's going to put this to rest. Because I know that if my podcast miss a week, I feel it.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking forward to it. So if you want to take a moment, just let us know. You know all the ways to contact us.
Yeah, and that's a good segue for me to introduce. If you are looking for bonus content, or if you want something like that, Mike and I had an idea about every now and then putting an episode in where we talk about cop stories, like where we talk about our funny cop. We're not going to go into this. Already has enough murder and destruction in it.
Of course.
We want to every now and then, maybe like every 10 episodes or 15 episodes, whatever you guys think. We definitely like your input, but we'd like to throw in and pick a topic and tell stories that we've had over the years, and kind of lighten the mood a little bit, because we have a lot, and we do have a comedic side to ourselves. Some of that doesn't come out in here. But we when we get together and start spinning yarn, as they say, and start telling stories, it can be a really good time. And so if that's something you're interested in, please let us know, because we'd love to do it.
Definitely. If that's what if we can do that to make up for the week that we missed, we'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where we're going to leave it for now. It was so good getting to sit down and talk with everybody. Thank you so much for listening. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Later.
Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I can't explain how much it means to us that our numbers are going up, and we're starting to get listeners from all across the United States and even the world. If you want to reach out to us or follow us on any of the social media platforms, on Facebook, we're at The Murder Project, or you can search facebook.com/podcasttmp. If you're on Instagram, you can find us at The Murder Project. And if you're on Twitter, you can find us at The Murder Pod. We also have a email. If you want to reach out to us over email, that would be really cool. Let us know where you're listening from. Let us know if you have any questions, concerns, comments. That email address is contact@themurderproject.com. We've had a few people that have reached out to the show and let us know that they're listening, and we absolutely love that. So keep them coming. Also, if you are listening on Apple or Spotify or any of those, make sure and give us a like, subscribe, leave us a review. That helps us get our name out in the beginning, because we are still a very young podcast, and we would appreciate that so much, because you can help us, and it doesn't even cost you anything. So that's going to do it for this episode of The Murder Project. Mike and I hope to speak with you guys real soon. But until then,
head up, eyes up,
and stay alive.